When it comes to iconic engines used in iconic cars, it's pretty hard to beat the rotary engine. Sure, in totally stock form, something like a Mazda 13B is not particularly interesting, exciting, or special. But with some tuning magic, these little engines not only sound absolutely incredible, but they can make a ton of power, especially considering how small they are on displacement. Unfortunately though, the rotary design, as you and I all kind of know, is not completely perfect, and there are some serious drawbacks with that design, which is part of the reason that Mazda stopped offering this engine in any of their cars at all, production cars and race cars. And we all thought the rotary engine was dead. That was up until this year when Mazda announced that they would be bringing it back. The question though is why? So let's get into it. And to preface this, I think it is worth mentioning for those that don't already know that a rotary engine works nothing like a standard internal combustion engine with connecting rods, pistons, and a crankshaft. While the standard internal combustion engine came around the scene around the late 1700s, early 1800s is when it was really being developed, tested, and finally seeing some success and actually working. It wasn't until 150 years later, in the 1950s, that we saw the initial development of the rotary engine. Now that's a big time jump, and it gives you an idea of just how different the rotary engine is. And we're not going to get deep into the specifics of how a rotary engine works in this video, because, well, that's already been explained by much smarter people in other YouTube videos. But to highlight some of the benefits of a rotary engine, it's incredibly small and compact compared to a piston engine. And because of the small physical size of this engine, it's also extremely lightweight. Part of the engine being physically small and ultimately lightweight is the fact that Mazda never really made them in a large displacement. The most popular rotaries that you'll see in road-going cars are the 1.3 liter and 2 liter. And yes, before you nerds go down to the comments, there are other displacements for rotaries out there, all the way down from 0.4 liters up to 2.6 liters. Mazda has done a little bit of everything, just saying the 1.3 and the 2 liter are the most popular road-going rotary engines. But the rotary engine that you and I are most familiar with is the 13B, which you can find in Mazda's very popular and now very expensive and hard to obtain 1990s RX-7. There's also the 20B that you can find in the Yunos Cosmo, which is a 2 liter rather than a 1.3 liter, like I mentioned, but rather than taking the exact design of the 13B, which was a 2-rotor engine, and simply scaling it up to make it a 2 liter 2-rotor, Mazda instead chose the route of adding a 3rd rotor. And where it gets really crazy is with the 26B engine that was used in the 767 and 787B Mazda race cars. In fact, the 787B is the first ever car to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans race outright without using a piston engine. So we know this engine is small, compact, lightweight, decently powerful, and capable of winning at racing at the absolute highest level in the world. So why did Mazda stop using this engine? It seems pretty good. Well, there are some serious drawbacks with this design. Most notably, fuel efficiency isn't particularly great, the emissions output is surprisingly bad, oil consumption is way too high, and the overall lifespan of the engine is significantly worse than the average piston engine. With that in mind, it kind of makes sense why Mazda stopped offering this engine. There just simply were not enough pros to outweigh the serious cons of this engine, which brings us to the real question at hand here. Why on earth did they bring it back for 2023, or why are they bringing it back for 2023? Well, there's actually two answers to that question. One, they fixed a lot of the emissions and reliability and fuel efficiency problems with the rotary design. They updated it and made some serious changes that made it quite a bit better. And two, this upcoming rotary engine isn't actually powering a car. And by now you're probably thinking this guy is an idiot. How on earth is Mazda using this engine in a car and you're sitting here saying it's not powering the car? And well, that's because this new rotary engine in the upcoming 2023 MX-30 isn't directly connected to the wheels at all. Rather, they're using this engine as a glorified generator for the MX-30 EV, which is, as the name implies, an electric vehicle comprised of electric motors and batteries. So the rotary engine is really just being used as a generator to extend the range of the electric vehicle system, which is pretty disappointing. But why even bother then if it's just a generator? Well, according to Mazda, the whole purpose of using a rotary as a generator compared to a piston engine is that the engine is more compact. And while that kind of sounds like a marketing gimmick at first, it's accurate to say that this engine has a ton of output relative to its small size. That being said, there are plenty of piston engines that Mazda could have used for the exact same purpose of just being a range extender or a generator, and the piston engine likely would have worked just as well or even better for probably less money in development. So yes, this engine is somewhat of a marketing gimmick, but it makes sense. They need to sell their cars, they need something to market on. As compared to previous rotary engines, and particularly their last rotary engine found in the Mazda RX-8, this new engine is much smaller and frankly more boring. It's down on rotors, it's down on displacement, power, RPM, displacement per rotor, and basically anything that has to do with performance. Mazda's most popular previous engines were multi-rotor units that revved very high and delivered lots of power and performance, particularly delivering lots of high RPM horsepower, but severely lacking on low-end torque. And because this new engine is being used as a generator, things like horsepower and performance really don't matter. Really, the only thing that matters in this context is generating as much electricity as possible while using as little fuel as possible. And the biggest and arguably most important upgrade to this new engine comes in the form of direct injection. And this is a big upgrade on fuel atomization and so much more. And I won't go into the nitty-gritty details about how direct injection works and why it's such a good thing and how it really helps out this new rotary engine. There's other videos explaining that already, but trust me, it's a big upgrade, especially when it comes to fuel efficiency. Other interesting upgrades for this new little rotary engine include aluminum side housings, which should even further improve the weight savings of the rotary design, especially considering how big the side housings are and that they were previously made out of cast iron. One of the oldest and most notorious problems with the rotary design is the apex seals, which I'm sure you've heard about online, but these little seals sit at the apexes of the spinning Dorito and keep everything sealed. And for this new engine, they widened the seals by about 25%, so that's a huge increase on the seals, and that should massively help with engine longevity, as the apex seals, as you probably already know, considering it's everywhere on the internet, are one of the weakest points of the rotary design. And Mazda also has this absolutely crazy patent about having an electric motor on the crankshaft or the eccentric shaft of the rotary engine to effectively slow down or speed up its rotation during its intake stage, which is constantly happening, in order to replicate some of the benefits of a VVT engine, which rotaries cannot typically benefit from considering they don't have valves. Now, I won't go into much more detail about this patent because Engineering Explained has already explained it on his YouTube channel, and he went into a lot of detail about how that works. So I'll link that video down in the description if you want to learn more about that type of system. With this in mind, it takes me to the biggest elephant in the room, which is the fact that we are not getting this engine in the United States. As far as I can tell, as of right now, it's going to strictly be a European product for the MX-30. But there is hope with Mazda developing this engine, developing what's effectively just a generator, that they could further improve the development and bring it back in their upcoming sports car, which should be the RX-9 if they ever decide to release that car. In the meantime though, all we can really do is just sit around and see if this new rotary engine is either going to be a really good generator or basically a piece of garbage, and hopefully it's good and hopefully we see it return in the RX-9. So what's my opinion on this? Well, I definitely think it's interesting that they're using a rotary engine again, but in the context of a simple range extender for an otherwise boring SUV, I must say this is pretty disappointing. Not only that, but frankly, I think it's not a great move. It allows them to leverage marketing on one of the few things that's ever helped them stand out as a company, but otherwise it would probably have been easier for them to just use a standard piston engine for this application. So that's all I've got for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to smash the thumbs up button because it really helps me out. Get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. Check out some of the other stuff on the channel. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We post a lot on there too, and I'll see you guys in the next one. For those of you that made it this far in the video, drop a comment down below. I'm wearing a flannel today because my arm is super sunburned and it is absolutely embarrassing how red I am right now.